Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. It's a rainy day outside today, and I figured I would break down and actually take the action of redoing this gun, because I was hesitant to refinish this gun and kind of make it mine, if you will, because I wanted to try it out and put it through its paces and make sure it would be worth the time and effort for me to work on it. So it definitely has proven that. This here is the original Marlin Goose gun, chambered in a 3-inch Magnum 12 gauge. It's also, I guess, known as the North Haven, Connecticut Model 55 12 gauge. It's a bolt action mag fed gun made for goose hunting primarily, with a very full choke and a 36-inch long barrel, if I'm not mistaken. The thing is huge, the barrel that just keeps on going. But it has some really great advantages because of that. Namely, it has a lot of weight out forward, so whenever you're aiming with the gun, your sight picture is very, very steady. The other thing I really love about this is the sight on it right here. Well, that sight is definitely not the same as normal. On the front's just a normal bead sight, but on the back here is this little ramp sight almost. I don't know exactly what you call that, but it just makes it so easy to line up your shot, and I definitely love it. I've only had this gun for maybe around a year, give or take, but it has quickly become my absolute favorite gun. I would say maybe top 2 of my favorite guns, and definitely the one that I find that I'm the most accurate with, and the one that's the easiest to take game with, actually hit them consistently. So we're going to be refinishing this today, and I'm going to do that on camera for you. And one of the things I'm going to do is disassemble it here. And one of the cool things about this gun is primarily you don't need much to disassemble this gun. You can essentially do it with one flathead screwdriver, and I'm just going to do it with a multi-tool today. So if I can figure out how to do the editing, I'm going to make this part fast forwarded and maybe do a voiceover or something along the lines. But yeah, this will be a long form video of me taking this apart. So, well, hopefully all the editing went fine on that. This is broken down to just the stock of the gun, and has that iconic little, I don't know what that's supposed to be, maybe like a goose eye or something. Let me get that closer so you can see what I'm talking about. It has this little like pin right there. I'm not sure what it's made out of, if it's wood or something else, but it seems to be iconic to the Marlin guns, or maybe even this gun. I really don't know for sure, but at any rate, we're going to take a random orbital sander, and we're gonna use some 120 grit sandpaper. If it feels smooth enough, I might leave it there, or I may go up to some 220 grit sandpaper and sand by hand. But yeah, we're gonna do that, and we'll have a time lapse of that. And yeah, see you when it's done. Okay, so I brought you in a little bit closer, and I'm glad I did because, yeah, I think you'll just get a better idea of what's happening here and more detailed look at what I'm doing. Yeah, I think I broke my tripod a little while ago, and so it's been a little bit difficult to position the camera, so I apologize for the diagonal positioning it's got going on. But at any rate, we're all finished here. So that's completely done with the 120 grit sandpaper on the, not the jitterbugs that are sander, but the with the random orbital sander. And you know, if you're a perfectionist like me, there's always something still left to do, but at some point you do have to call it good enough. The random orbital sander as well as 120 grit sandpaper just by hand, just to try and get some of the lines out that random orbital sander creates. And I think got a lot of the little dings and dents out. There's some still that are left over, but you know, that's part of it. This gun's been through some stuff before me, and it's been through some stuff since me, and it'll be through more stuff later. So it's very nice. This wood is super hard. I thought it might be oak via the grain before I started sanding it, but now that I'm sanding it, I'm not sure if it's oak or if it's walnut. I don't know. It probably is on the internet and would tell me. I just never looked it up. If you happen to know, please leave it in the comments. I'd be curious. But it is quite a hard wood nonetheless. But anyway, let's get to the next step, which is going to be adding some stain to it. Now this stain here is, it says that it's some kind of a red something, semi-transparent barn red, so like super red stain. But I have been mixing my stains, and I'm not quite sure that this thing is truly barn red. But in any rate, I think I'm going to use it. Guess that sucker sure is red, ain't it? Let me see what that does just to like this right here. Oh, well that's not near as bad as I thought. So this must be mixed. This is probably thinned out with linseed oil or something along those lines. I need a stirring stick, something to stir with. And I'll use, I'll use this guy right here, this little piece of scrap that's I'm not going to use for anything. Shouldn't be shaking stain, if I remember right. You should be stirring it. And I think I won't do any sort of a time lapse for this part because most people enjoy seeing the stain go on. So yeah, that's going to be quite red. But that's okay, because I'm going to use the stain I have. This sucker's going to be a red gun here. I think it's cool. So to apply it, you don't really need anything special. I'm just using an old oily rag, but you can use a clean rag or really just whatever you have, rag or a paintbrush. One thing I would mention though, when you're doing stain, especially this type of oil-based stain, I don't know about all stains, but what you want to do is apply it on, get it everywhere, and then immediately start wiping it off as soon as you put it on. Don't leave it to sit there. Don't leave it to sit for very long, because what will happen is it'll soak in and it will get gummy and sticky, and it's just not at all what you want. So first step, get a nice liberal coating over everything. I didn't think to get myself another rag for rubbing this stuff off, but we'll see what happens. I might be able to use a different part of this rag to do that with. You can kind of see that grain. Hopefully you can. Yeah, good. I have it in camera then. You can see that grain starting to pop. Well, you got this red stain on your gun. You're ruining your gun. Not really, man. It's what I have, and that's something that I actually enjoy about using the stain right now. Now, it might not be the ideal, but what are my goals here? My goal is to make it look more pretty, but more than that, my goal is to personalize it. To have this gun be something that I made. Maybe not made, but I refinished. I made my own, so to speak. And yeah, this is going to accomplish that. Boy, that's pretty actually up there. I'm going to get a little bit more on this. Get that up in there. Remember, get a nice thick coating everywhere for starters. That's your starting point. Get a nice thick coat, everywhere. I'll do a once over of all up in here. Definitely all the stuff I sanded and all the stuff that's unfinished that I can see. I'll be doing that too. To try and get all the inner parts of this gun that don't have any finish. Try and start protecting it from the inside some. Really take care of it, you know. Keep the longevity of this tool going strong for a long time to come. And then one final place that a lot of people might miss is this end grain. So wood is set up essentially like with the grain is a whole bunch of straws. Think of it like a whole bunch of straws pointing out the end. And so when you apply it here, it can soak in a little bit, because if that stack of straws has been cut on a slight angle, some of those straws can suck some of this stain in. But primarily, the place where it can suck the most in is the end grain. So consequently, that's also where the wood is most likely to crack. And so you really want to make sure you get a nice thick coating on that end grain. And don't be too afraid of getting too much on the end grain, because it will soak in a lot. So I'm gonna try and fold this to a different part and start kind of rubbing the excess off. I might leave that stuff on the end grain for a second and just start rubbing the excess off of this thing. Boy, that is gonna make that goose eye pop, ain't it? I just hope it doesn't quite make it pink. It's looking like it might rub off. Yeah, it'll rub off. That's beautiful. Okay, cool. And that is gonna be one cool looking gun, huh? It's really not turning out quite as red as I thought it was going to turn out, which is, I guess, good, because I wouldn't want it to be like the level of barn red. But if it was, I'd be happy with it. But I would prefer something a little bit more brown, or a little bit less sticking out and drawing attention, because remember, this is my hunting gun. I'm not looking to alert anything that I'm here. I'm looking to stay hidden. Alright, that is beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and find this other part of this. Do just a dab more on the end grain up here. And then I'll leave that to soak in while I do this other side. Rubbing that off. Look at that. That's already like soaked all up inside of it. There's not really anything to wipe off. That is cool. Cool how wood works that way. And I'll wipe this off. You should probably, wear gloves for this, but I've been doing this kind of stuff a long time, and I'm not real good about following the rules with wearing gloves for this, so it is what it is, but you'd be better off wearing gloves by all means. So I'm just gonna rub that off real quick. Look at that contrast in that. That is a nice looking finish. That knot right there, how that stain hit on that knot, it's pretty cool. Stain is pretty hard to predict what it's going to do, and so yeah, it's generally very unique. But we're gonna get to the next step of this thing here, so I'm gonna cut it off and get you back in a second. Okay, so I just got done giving these a little bath, nothing special, just soap and water. If you're afraid that your gun's just gonna immediately start rusting because it touched water, one thing you can do is simply dry it off. See, the process of oxidation for rust, and I'm no scientist, but the process for oxidation of rust involves water being left to dry on an item, like naturally, for an extended period of time. But if you just wipe the water right off of it, there's generally not enough water to really do much in the way of damage. Especially if you were to follow it up with something like oil. And that's what I'm going to do, which is going to be a little bit tricky because I don't want to get oil on this nice clean surface that I've just created, but I also don't want to get vinegar into the innards of this gun, which vinegar is likely what I'm going to be using to do a patina. I've also used mustard very often, and to To be honest, I've usually enjoyed mustard's finish more, but I think I'm going to try vinegar today and see how that goes. So yeah, I'm just going to be drying this stuff off. Can use a lot of things to do a patina, and it also depends kind of on what you want for your patina. Like, do you want a very even finish, or do you want something that's more inconsistent? Because that will absolutely make a difference. Let's dry off this big guy. It dried very fast. A lot of this is already dried before I even wipe it. So I mean, seems to be doing very well. I see no visual signs of rusting at the moment, so that's great. Again, that bath I gave it was just soap and water. Not perfectly sanded here, but I think I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna roll with the imperfection. Okay, let's get on to the next step, which will be oiling it. So the next part of this project that I have going on is something that's probably going to potentially upset some people. But if you are one of those people that's going to be upset by this, just try and think of it from the standpoint of the interests of myself, where I like the old ways of doing things that are more sustainable, stuff like bushcraft and survival and being able to do more with less. And, you know, at some point way back in history, they didn't necessarily have bluing as a means of finishing their firearms or their steel or that kind of thing. They probably had other methods of doing it, but one of the things that I really enjoy is patina. And so I'm going to do what I have done before, which is create a forced patina on this gun. I have done it before and it was wonderful and I loved the result. And to be honest with you, I have less rust issues on that gun that I've done it to than I do on a lot of my other guns. So patina works very well. I've been very impressed with it. And you know, obviously the look is gorgeous too with the different patterns that it creates and things like that. So what we're going to do is sand the barrel and we're going to force a patina on it. All I'm going to use is this 220 grit sandpaper for sanding the barrel. I might go up to like something like a Scotch-Brite or something a little bit finer. I might have some finer sandpaper somewhere, but yeah, this will just be a time lapse of me doing that. So a lot of times I'm not real picky about oil and I'll just kind of use what I have, which is normally anything from WD-40 to even like motor oil. But I have it and I think I'm going to use it here, which is this Remington gun oil. And I'm going to try and especially get it down into the cracks of the bolt here. That's a point of concern I have. It'd be good not to spray it directly into my face. That would be pretty ideal. that worked in. It'll be more difficult to rust now with that having been done. I'll just dry the outside of it off. And now that I put that oil on there, I will probably use some sort of a solvent to help get it off. That could be anything from alcohol to paint thinner or something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get a little oil on the inside of this. This sucker wasn't sanded perfect either, but mainly concerned with the trigger. Okay. And then the little mag release. Get a little oil in that. It's not like this has a ton of moving parts. You know, this is relatively simple. One of the things about kind of my philosophy on what makes a good outdoor gun strays beyond just rate of fire and that kind of thing. It strays towards reliability, and the more moving parts and the more things you have on a gun, the quicker that it will become non-functioning out in the field whenever stuff goes wrong. And taking this gun apart for, I guess, the first time, second time now, has actually encouraged me even more on just how there's not a lot of moving parts in here. There's not an incredible amount to go wrong, and the things that could go wrong seem to be pretty well protected. The biggest thing that I've noticed that goes wrong with this is the magazine likes to fall out if you are holding the gun and you press the trigger a little too easily, or if you just insert it into the gun without giving it that positive smack. So at any rate, we need to get set up with this vinegar. Maybe I'll tell you a story about the vinegar, or about, I guess, gun reliability in my experience with it. So a lot of people with vinegar, when they're doing some sort of a vinegar, let me cut this. When they're doing some sort of a vinegar patina, forced patina on whatever they're doing, they will generally soak the item inside like a cup or a vat of vinegar. And I obviously don't really have much of a option to do that, and I also don't like doing that because the it requires an enormous amount of vinegar. The amount of vinegar that's enormous is no longer usable really for anything other than that, and it just seems wasteful and honestly a little more difficult and less accessible to everybody. And so yeah, I just don't really prefer to do that. Let's get these moved over a hair, and let me think about how I'm going to do this here. It's just white distilled vinegar here I'm going to be using. Don't go crazy buying the expensive stuff. Hope that's obvious. The cheap stuff will work. Lots of different vinegars will work. I'm just going to let it start to pool over and try and hold that over the edge until I kind of feel it start to permeate. Maybe it starts to drip. And then I'm going to lift up, kind of work this through. It might need a little bit more. I think it does. So I'm going to go to the side where it's dry and do this again. There's probably better ways to do this. You could pour it out into a little cup if you wanted, but you really want this to be pretty wet with the vinegar. But then again, you know, vinegar is quite strong. It's stronger than the doing this with mustard for sure. Mustard is slower, more controlled. Vinegar is definitely a lot more aggressive, and yeah, you don't want to screw around with vinegar. Vinegar will literally just disintegrate your metal. Just like find any spot of weakness in your metal and it will just start eating away at it. So ideally, this has good solid contact. So I'm going to wrap it because I'm trying to make sure it's got some good solid contact around it and that there's some vinegar all over this thing. Okay, and then I'll start working on this other one. Let me tell you the story. So I have a little 410 shotgun. Okay, the first gun that I ever purchased myself was a 410 single shot bolt action shotgun made by Savage, if I remember right. And that one is the contender for my favorite gun because it was the first one I ever bought and because it holds memories with me and my grandfather looking at it and stuff. That gun, I was taking hunting one time and I was experimenting with cut shells, which if you don't know is essentially a way of making a slug out of birdshot. Just yeah, like cheap birdshot. It's also called the poor man's slug for that reason. And so I'm just kind of going out there and yeah, experimenting with these birdshot slugs, and I ended up cutting one too close. I cut it too close to the powder, and I ended up leaking gunpowder all over my gun. And yeah, like it was pretty detrimental if you're trying to go hunting and you just dump a bunch of gunpowder all over your gun. You're kind of asking for it to explode if you continue to use it. And so I didn't. What I did instead was I took the gun apart because it is as simple as essentially one single, or maybe two actually, I think it's two little flathead screwdrivers that you could, you know, undo with a penny. And so the point being, I did that, and then I dunked my whole gun into the pond. Right, so I have this gun, and I take the handle off of it and take it apart via two flathead screws, and then I dunk the whole thing in the pond. And then cleaned it off, put it back together. I didn't even dry it because I didn't have much to dry with. I might have dried it with my shirt or something. And just kept shooting, and it was no issue. So it's like, the point being, if you have a gun that shoots a whole bunch of rounds a second, that's amazing, especially for bird hunting, when you can benefit from having a whole bunch of shots, or really any kind of a animal that, you know, is in flocks or big groups where you benefit from having multiple shots, not only if you miss, but if you if you have multiple shot opportunities. But the downside is, if that gun, as cool as it may be with that function, and as useful as it may be with that function, if that gun is, you know, not capable of being torn down and cleaned on site, then I don't like it as much. I would prefer to have something that is versatile, and by my estimation of versatile, I love being able to take down the gun to a point of cleaning it and getting it back into service, even if it had a whole bunch of dirt or grime all over it, you know, that type of thing. I like the idea of being able to get that gun back into service without having to wait for it to go back to the house or back to home base. You know, that has a lot of value both from a bushcraft, from a survival thought process, all of that type of stuff has a lot of value. So there's something to think about when you're thinking about what kind of guns you want. That's something to think about. So I have this vinegar on here. I'm just going to try and make sure everything's got some on it. Try and get some decent coverage on everything to help mitigate uneven patina. Because that's a thing with this. You know, you can have uneven patinas if you're not careful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to just kind of wrap this towel over it. Oh, and drop pieces of gun material, because that's always good. No, but anyway, I'm gonna try and wrap this stuff up to try and slow the evaporation and make good use of the vinegar that was used in this. So I'll get back with you whenever I take this back off to look at essentially the oxidation or the rust that we're creating preemptively, and then we'll remove that surface rust, and underneath will be this like acid etched pattern, which is going to help mitigate rust for the future, and it works very, very well. Yeah, this is great stuff. I actually enjoy this more than the bluing on guns, obviously. So let me get back with you here in a bit. Well, welcome back, y'all. It's been something like an hour and 10 minutes or so of letting this thing soak. I'm feeling it, and it's physically still wet with vinegar, so there's definitely still some vinegar in there. And this process will likely take more time because of the way that I'm doing it is involving slowing the evaporation, which I'm not sure if it's better or worse, but it should probably take longer. So we're going to take a peek. We're going to take a peek and see how it's doing. I see there's some oxidation that's already happening. Some of this is rust. Some of this is rust, to be clear with you. I think I got you in a better spot here to look at it. So you can see right here where there's browning happening in some spots. I have a feeling that's going to be rust whenever I pull this off, and this does actually feel drier on this side. So the spots where there's more air exposure is going to have more in the way of, oh, that's working good. Nice. I may not even need to do, man, I'm hard pressed now to decide whether or not to keep going or not. Wow, that worked out well. That worked out well. It looks like a freaking camo pattern or something. That's cool. I think last time I did this to one of my guns, I did it with mustard as opposed to vinegar. Oh, but a lot of it's rubbing off though. Well, what I was watching a video on other people doing patinas, and one of the things they discussed that made sense to me is, you know, the acid is touching certain parts of the steel as it's wrapped up in whatever method you're doing. So one of the things you can do is in intermittent parts of this process, you pull it out of the acid bath, wipe it down clean, and then reapply more acid, so that the spots that didn't get touched as well will get touched by doing that. That's the theory anyway. So I think I'm going to go ahead and employ that. I've got a rag here, just an old piece of cut up shirt that I'm going to see how this looks here. Oh, heck yeah, man. So that is definitely working. Definitely working. That is cool. It's coming out with a little bit of a blue tint, which is pretty cool. I was looking into some of the history of people using patinas, and apparently it was fairly widespread. So like the Japanese apparently used it, and people different parts of Europe used to use it. Romans even used to use it. It seems like a lot of it was for decorative purposes, but some of it was for protective purposes as well. And yeah, it's just a cool process, and nice to be able to use, you know, something like vinegar, as in something that you can literally eat, as opposed to some type of chemical that may not be the best for you. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm going to sit here and clean this up a bit. So this one doesn't seem to be taking as much of a, or if it is, it's very even. If it is taking somewhat of a patina. But this is going to be interesting because I'm going to experiment with something that I've never tried before, to my knowledge anyway, but I've known about. And one of the things you can use to force a patina is different food items. That's something else that's pretty cool about it. So I have a few tomatoes from our garden that are smaller and getting old and wrinkly, but the juice inside those tomatoes is full of acid and will be useful for this. So I'm going to rub those tomatoes all over these different parts and see what kind of a patina they'll give. So that's pretty cool. You can look up a lot of different methods of using different things to force a patina. Like, for example, of course, vinegar, apple cider vinegar. And even in that realm, one of the things you can do is heat the vinegar up. And you can heat the vinegar in the microwave for like a couple minutes, and it speeds up this etching process, an oxidation process, so that you don't have to wait as long. But for me personally, for this particular application, this is a large item, and I don't really want to spend the money, take the time to figure out a way to, fill up a large vat to soak everything in. It's just less, what's the word? Less practical, that's the word. Don't know why I'm struggling to remember that one. But I think this will be a really cool way of kind of refinishing your gun from a bushcraft style perspective. I'm not sure really who my demographic is that watches any of these videos, but some of you who click on this may know who Dave Canterbury is, and I would encourage you to go check out his video. You'll probably be able to find his videos by searching just Dave Canterbury, and then search walnut dyeing and walnut bluing. And he's doing a process in that video similar to what I'm doing right here. He's using, instead of vinegar, he's using walnut husks, a big, huge solution. It's like a horse trough filled with walnut husks as a means of creating a dyeing in a patina solution to, like preserve the metal of this gun. It's pretty cool. Seems like that oil is working well in there to keep anything from getting seized or weird in there. And we're going to help that even more by washing this all out with soap and water after, whenever we consider it patinaed enough, whenever that point is, because you can go for a long time and make the stuff really dark for sure, but whenever we consider that time has come, we'll go wash these off really good. So there's that. I'm gonna do this guy a bit more. That is a very cool pattern that did not happen the other times that I've done this. Alright, the other time I did this, because I've only patinaed a gun once before. This is getting brown hues. That'll be kind of interesting. Probably look a bit more like rust, which essentially it is rust. It's controlled rust, right? Because the controlled process of rust, without getting too scientific, somehow leaves this protective etched coating onto the steel and onto the different types of metal, because it's not just this, there's other metals that get patina as well, and it leaves a protective coating. But that protective coating is essentially like the first fruits, or the maybe the leftovers of rust itself. So it's interesting. Rust is the enemy, right? But you're using rust to your advantage by doing this method. Some of that might actually stay, and that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool if some of that stayed. Especially up here by the breech. Look at that. It looks like a freaking camo pattern or something. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. So like on Dave's video, I think he had somebody that criticized him for this being rust, and his response was something like, "You want to call that rust? That's okay." Well, I mean, it kind of is rust, but it's controlled rust. There's a method to the madness, so to speak. Yeah. This is kind of cool. It's like it's a bushcrafty type way, self-reliance, bushcrafty, do-it-yourself type way of, you know, maybe restoring a firearm. Maybe a firearm is rusted real bad and you're restoring it, and what you do to restore it is sanding off all the rust, and in so doing, sanding off all the bluing that's already been done to it. And you need a way to re-blue it, essentially. And you can go buy some bluing solution if you want, or you can do this, you know. It's up to you, the choice is yours. But if you're watching this video, you might think it's kind of cool to do this. I don't know, it's up to you. I definitely think it looks super cool. So like, this stuff looks like rust, right? It's brown, maybe you can see that. Like, some of the stuff looks like rust, it's brown. I don't know if you can see that, but if you just feel it, it feels just like smooth as can be. So it's not so much rust, but it's the discolored acid etch that's left behind from that oxidation process that rust causes. I'm just catching rust in its early stage, essentially, and trying to control and slow that process. So let's have fun, without me dropping the tomatoes, let's have fun with rubbing our stuff with tomatoes here. And I dropped one of them, so I'm gonna go get that really quick. I actually dropped 2 of them. I grabbed 3. I don't really know how much I'll need or won't need, but I'll probably do both tomatoes and more vinegar as well. So let's see. Maybe I'll cut this again. Like this sort of a situation. One of the interesting things, I'm going to put this on before I get tomato juice all over it more than I already have. One of the interesting things about this whole vinegar etching scenario is you can speed up the process, apparently, by adding water. Not just speed it up, you can make it more uniform, make it, like I say, quicker and that kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Because I'm assuming water is speeding up the process of it oxidizing, you know? So you can literally, if you wanted to make a big vat of this, you can make a big vat of this while having it cost you less in terms of vinegar, and just substitute with water, literally. That's pretty cool. Oh, dropped one. That's all right, I got a bunch. If people watch this video, I'm gonna probably be filled with comments like, "What is this idiot doing, rubbing his gun down with tomatoes and vinegar? This is stupid." It's kind of funny for me to think about the social awkwardness of that. That's my personal humor, is the social awkward type of humor, where somebody does or says something in a social situation that's just impossibly awkward, and there's nowhere good to go from it. There's no recovering from it. That's just funny to me. Cut more of this. Let's see. Like I say, this thing is the Marlin Goose gun, but it is, you know, of course, able to be used for other things, and I've so far mostly used it for dove, funny enough, which is probably somewhat odd for a lot of you. Like, why are you using a full choke, you know, magnum chamber 12 gauge for some little old doves? And the reason is I really enjoy having full chokes, for one, because I find that while you have to be more accurate with a full choke, when you do hit them, they actually fall. If anybody's a duck or dove hunter, I don't know, dove hunters for sure, I guess. We experience a lot of this of You can shoot them, but they don't actually die. You know, let me actually just get a big pile of these and pour some vinegar on it. You can shoot the doves a bunch, but they don't actually die. You know, you see them react to having been shot, and then they just keep flying. And you're thinking, how in the world are they doing that? You know, it's just crazy. Seems insane that they're doing that, but they continue to do it. Well, with this gun, I have way less instances of that, and I think it is a lot to do with the full choke, because when you hit them, they actually go down, and they go down pretty hard. So it's harder to, you have to aim better because you have a full choke, so you don't have as much margin for error, and you don't really want to shoot them close range because, you'll blow them to smithereens and not have anything to show for hunting. But you actually get them. The other reason I prefer a full choke is because of the environment that I live in. I guess I didn't use that one. The environment I live in is kind of desert plains type environment now, but even before then I still preferred the full choke because I enjoy being able to engage them from longer ranges. I find that to be more versatile for the places that I live and have grown up in. But like, for example, Dave Canterbury really enjoys the modified choke as opposed to the full choke, and that works well for his environment, being in the Ohio woods where it's so thick you can't hardly get a shot on anything at 100 yards because it's so thick you wouldn't be able to even see him. Okay, so yeah, what the heck, I'll juice these tomatoes all over this thing. May as well. They're done now. But I have a feeling that these tomatoes will cause more of a brown oxidized effect from what I'm hearing. But hopefully this will show that you really can do this with just about anything. So for reference, if you don't know anything about doing patinas or anything like that, for a reference point, you can do patinas with tomatoes, with onions. I don't know about garlic, but because it's so close to onions, I kind of assume garlic. Mustard works very, very well. Of course, vinegar, apple cider vinegar, like I say, boiled vinegar does it faster. What else can you do it with? I imagine ketchup would work because it's tomato based. It has to do with acid, citric acid. You can do it with, it really has to do with the acidity, creating an environment that's going to try and oxidize the gun. So, all right, I guess time to leave that for another hour or so and come back and clean it up again. This is pretty cool. It gets a lot of the gunk off your knife too, off your gun too, because you're dealing with a lot of cleaners, vinegar. But anyway, appreciate you watching, and we'll get back to it here in an hour or so. I figure I may as well, probably should go ahead and talk you through what I'm doing right here, because I figured while I'm letting this oxidize, I may as well do something in that waiting time. So what I'm going to try and do is create a stand for the gun stock to sit on while I continue finishing that gun stock, because I'm going to use what I have to finish it, and what I have happens to be varnish, or excuse me, I think it's lacquer. And so one of the things with that is getting a nice even finish. You don't want to be touching it as you're putting on the finish. And I don't really have a great way of hanging that one because of the way it's designed. And so my thought is I put a hole right here, I put a hole in this, and I'm going to try and screw it together. And then I'm going to shape the tip of this so that the gun stock will at least just set in there. If I can just get it to set in there, I think we'll be good. So the rest of this could even be like a time lapse of me working on this, I'm not sure. Okay, it's nice and solid in there. Doesn't wobble much. Here's that gorgeous gun stock after the staining. Potentially use a saw to try and get the outline of a hole that approximates. There is no hole on this. Oh. There's no hole drilled into this guy. Well, that actually makes the issue a bit more difficult. Well, maybe it makes it more easy. Hang on a sec. I have a wonderful idea. But I do kind of want to do it via a block of wood. So maybe I'll do it with this block of wood here. That might be good. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I don't know if you can even hear me talking to myself through this, but the issue with this buttstock is that it doesn't have, you know, the large hole that most of the buttstocks would normally have. It just has the two little holes for holding on the butt plate. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't want to mess up those holes, because I don't want to strip out the holes that attach to the butt plate, I'm going to drill my own hole into the center of the buttstock, but it's not going to be a big hole. It's going to be just a hole to hold the screw. Then the problem is it's going to be against this bottom board, which is going to make it more difficult to get an even coat using lacquer. So what I'm going to do is essentially use this board as a little buffer for that. Yeah, I'll get back with you when that's done. Okay, stabbed myself. Need a different bit, probably. Over here somewhere, a bigger bit. Be just fine for this application. else am I gonna do here? I think I need to drill a hole in that one, which will probably be something that is more so right on the money thickness wise. Probably more like that. Okay. Moment of truth. That is a very hard wood to drill through. Hard wood for sure. Smells like walnut, if I'm not mistaken. But it could be oak. Still not for sure. This here. Yeah, that's gonna freaking work. That is gonna freaking work. Okay. Okay, so to recap, this is gonna work. This is sturdy enough. It's not, amazing, but it's sturdy enough that I can, I can get all the way to the top with lacquer and all the way to the bottom. Now, I've already cleaned this off. I'm gonna go get set up to do lacquer, and I'll get back with you in a second. Okay, y'all, let's talk a little bit about lacquer. So, lacquer I happen to be using is Watco branded crystal clear lacquer semi-gloss, 30 minutes, dry to the touch. The way I'm going to apply it is not the way that is recommended on the bucket or the paint can here. It's a way that I've seen one other person do something similar to, and it's a way that I've tried once before so far. I was very impressed with what happened on the one time that I tried it before, and so I feel comfortable continuing to do it this time. Your mileage may vary. That's kind of like the same thing with all of this. Your mileage may vary, right? Because there's a lot of different things that go into stuff like this, especially like the patina finish not being even. It's much more difficult to guarantee a completely even patina. But I'm going to do my best not to spill that whole thing. Get rid of that. Make sure your wood is wiped down and clean. And I really enjoyed the method that the guy showed in the video that I watched this on at first, which he showed like wrapping a towel within a towel, basically. This knife is dull as can be. Let me get the Mora out to save the day. So thick shirt. I just need to sharpen my knives. It is like a polo shirt, and it's got thicker material. Might be part of why, but surprising how long it's taken to cut that. Basically, what the guy did, he laid it out, kind of groups in the corners, and groups in the corners. And then I think he wrapped this whole thing into another rag, which is probably better. So yeah, I'll try that actually. Wrap this up like that. And then if I remember right, he ties these together to a little, just like a little bow. And that's just basically for the sake of making your applicator surface kind of round, smooth, and with a little bit of like surface tension, so that when you're putting it on, it can kind of morph around some of these little cracks and crevices. But what did I leave over there that I need? Gloves. I'm gonna go get some gloves. I'll be right back. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. When you're using lacquer, you want to stir it before you use it. It's another situation of, I'm going to not use the, oh gosh, it's all red. I'm going to not use the red end. I should probably go get another glove because I got the red varnishing. I'm going to do it because I don't want to regret it after the fact. You know, the thing with this varnishing and these types of finishing on wood products is, you know, if you mess it up, you're going to see it. Unless you re-sand it and refinish it, all that jazz, you're going to see it. And even then, you may still see it. So, just trying to take as much precautions as I can. My lacquer's been stirred up. I'm going to set that right there. I'm going to get my applicator, dip it straight in if it would fit. And it doesn't really. Made my t-shirt too thick. I'm going to let it soak up a little bit in this case. I'm going to start applying. So the first thing you want to do is get even coverage. But unlike when you're doing this with the stain, this you have to move pretty fast. You do not need a lot of pressure at all. And you want to be certain that you have, kind of like you're painting, you have a clear brush stroke the whole way down. I wish I made this thing smaller. I may have to abandon ship with this and just go with a single. I'm going to add another coat on this because I feel like I need more time, because I'm going to untie this real quick. This kind of stuff happens. It's probably good to show it on video, because this kind of stuff does have the tendency to happen when you're in the moment. So I'm going to get rid of that one, and I'm going to go with this. It's not tied, but it still has that surface tension, and I'm going to work with this. Not talking as much because I'm trying to focus on getting as good of a coverage as I can. As good a coverage as possible. Okay, get right here. Now I'm gonna go back over. I'm gonna try and get an even finish. So this is where it comes in kind of like paintbrush strokes, where you're starting at the very top, and in one continuous stroke, you're moving down the whole thing, trying to eliminate runs. And get as even a finish as you can possibly get. And because this is lacquer, you have both the advantage and the disadvantage of a limited time to work with it. Because like it says on the bottle, this will be dry or set up or something in 30 minutes. So you don't want to screw around too much. You don't want to take too much of your time. You don't want to go back over a spot where you just were. You have to do a whole stroke. So don't do what I just did. Go back over a whole stroke. Okay. And I'll try and now I'm just going to look over it and try and see where there's going to be potential problem areas, and I see some right here. I'll already go over that. I'm trying to cut off a sliver of this if I can. That's actually getting better. That's good. That's what I'm doing, and I don't have necessarily a whole bunch of time to describe what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is trying to make a little tool so that I can scoop out some of the varnish that is causing a run down the side of the finish. Just right in here, scooping out some of that varnish. Scooping out some of that varnish. Okay. That is better. That is better. So now, just trying to look everywhere. Try and look for any sort of, like if it were painting, you'd be looking for brush strokes. That's kind of what you're looking for here too. Any kind of inconsistencies in the finish as it reflects in the light. Probably want to be doing this in some decent ventilation, because this stuff is pretty powerful. Freaking, you know, it'll get you high, so careful. Okay, now to wait for, I think the optimum time before reapplying is, I want to say it was 2 hours. So we'll probably wait and put it back on here in 2 hours. I'll read that on this bottle to make sure. Just read your bottle, it'll have the instructions. Allowed to dry 2 hours before recoating. Yeah, 2 hours. Okay, we'll get back with you. Welcome back, everybody. We are about to check on this barrel and breech and all these little metal parts of it. We have the finished, or not completely finished, but the first coat of varnish or lacquer, excuse me, on this. Okay, having issues with positioning the camera and stuff, so pardon me, I know you can't see me right now, but the stock is still here drying with that lacquer, and it has been roughly an hour since we applied that last coating of vinegar and tomatoes rubbed all over it. So one of the things, I took a peek at this earlier, and one of the things that's going to turn out nicer is this magazine. It's going to have some nice browning going on in there, which is cool. Looking forward to that. Let's see what else is going on here. See if I can't unwrap this a bit. Let's see what it looks like. Because at some point I have to say good enough and take it in and start cleaning it up and getting it ready. So let's see what we have here. What wipes off and what doesn't. That is not bad. That is not bad. It's kind of a dark gray right now. And it looks like it's going to have a little bit of spirals that dried in there, which is very cool. I'm tempted to accept that and call it good. Very tempted. You could go more with this. You could go more with this. I think I'm going to commit. What does the breach look like? Breach is starting to get more. Oh, that's just actually a piece of tomato. Breach is starting to get more oxidized. I think what I might do is just kind of leave it out in the air to air dry and kind of oxidize as it's air drying as well. A little bit here. That's kind of like this finalized darkening before we essentially go wash all the material off that's causing the patina. But you can kind of see, I'll give you somewhat of a close-up. You can kind of see, hopefully, some of the patterning that is happening on it. Some of this brown is going to wipe off because it's, again, it's like essentially very early forming. Oh, excuse me, very early stage rust, essentially. Oh gosh. Knocking over my bit set. So I'm going to leave that to air out a little bit, and then I think I'm going to do a little bit of stuff on these. Yeah. What does this guy look like? This one had a lot of this bluing material still on it. Didn't really want to come off very good. Like, I'm not trying to... Perfection is the goal, but it's not what's attainable. So I'm keeping that in mind as I do this, and rolling with what I get. So this one, there's more potential for patina down here than there is up in here because there's more bluing still up there. I'm gonna kind of let this air dry a bit. This guy is getting nice and colored in here. I'm going to be careful of what work I do right here because I don't want to knock this stalk off. Oh wow, I can see the barrels is getting all colored in now that it's exposed to the air. It's good, that's what I want. That is what I want. It's essentially rusting right now, so I'm going to be a little bit cautious for the timing and allow this stuff to rust in just a little bit, and then I'll go wipe the rust off and it'll be etched in there. So I'm gonna leave this out for 5-10 minutes, something, let it start to develop more rust and character. Then I'm gonna take it in and I'm gonna wash it off with soap and water again. And yeah, I might take you in there for that process. So just to give you guys an idea, I just put some dish soap and some like concentrated Mr. Clean soap of some sort inside here. There may be some neutralizing effect that the soap has against the vinegar if the soap happens to be a base, but it's not really that deep. It's even at a basic level just soap is mechanically removing the particles of other crap off of this, including oil, so we need to be sure to oil this after the fact. I wanted to show you this guy because I felt like this might be one of the better examples. You can kind of see the browns in that, and even just as it's soaking in here, those browns are turning into like darker bluish hues, like that's becoming that a lot of places. And I don't know how much of that is going to turn blue and how much is going to stay brown. Past experience, it has mostly turned to more of a blue. However, I've never used tomatoes before, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, it's nothing special. I've just got a rag and I'm just wiping and scrubbing stuff down. That's about it. All right, so we are at the point after the soap and water bath of this thing. You can see kind of that brown coloration that's happening, where it looks like rust, but if you were to feel that and draw your finger over it, it just feels smooth as can be. And we get some more brown right in here. I think the glare's on it. There you go. You can see some more brown and on the way up that thing. Crazy patterns and colors. I just love the randomized nature of that. Let's see if I can get it close up to focus. I'm not sure I can. You can just hopefully see the level of randomness. And there's more on the other pieces too, but the main thing that you'll see is the barrel, so that's what I wanted to show you. The next step here is, now that we've dunked this whole thing in acid for a while, we're gonna, now that we've cleaned that up, we're going to oil it all real well. And yeah, that'll help to preserve it and stop any evaporative oxidation right now after that water and soap bath, and then we'll see to the rest of this guy. Keep going on him. Okay guys, camera might be smudged a bit. Hopefully that's just the screen and not the actual picture that y'all are seeing. Although that light's glaring a bit. Try that. It's time to put another coat on this gun, on the stock. I've wiped down, I've oiled, oops, get this on. I've wiped down and I've oiled the other metal parts of this, and we're getting down closer to the nitty gritty here. I'll have to decide if I want to do 2 or 3 coats of lacquer. Let me go get some gloves really quick. We can embark on the next nerve-wracking part of this, where we're doing the lacquer. First coat looks like it pretty well turned out great. See how the second coat goes. Alright. Get my multi-tool screwdriver out to this piece of can. Right. Have that. Okay. Not going to bother stirring this time because we stirred last time. I'll see about using this piece, or if I feel like I should use a different piece. I'm thinking I'm just going to use this piece. So I don't have any. Actually, excuse me really quick. My cat wants to get in. I hear her meowing. I'm in the garage. She's in the house. She wants out. Come on in, Myrtle. Kitty cat. She wants to be outside. Okay. Without further ado, I'm not going to bother stirring because I already did before. We're going to start applying this. Start applying this nice and liberally. That apparently was not very much. I'm talking scooch it all on there, man. Scooch it all on there. Like you just got a big old hefty coat of it, and then we'll smooth out the coat. This is more wasteful, but it'll get a more consistent final product, I think. Not that I'm an expert. You do this at your own risk. Okay, so I think we're almost to the point to start trying to finish it, so let me. Okay, so finishing this. Out there. I don't like that. I need to do something. First off, I need to do that, and then I need to do something that allows me to get down into this crevice and then stop. Yeah. I have to get up and get physical with it. Okay. My cat is rapidly losing interest in being here. Shoot, messed that up. Let's scooch some of this gooch out of here. And let's try this again. Alright, I'm kind of liking something different that I'm trying here. And that is almost like the shoe shine method, where you just have a thinner section of the towel and you're applying a little more pressure. I don't like that because there's a potential of it messing up the other side, but there's a potential of it not messing up the other side. I suppose always, all of this, there's a potential of messing up the other side, but there's a potential of knocking this gun off of its fairly fragile perch point right now with that screw. Scooch some of this gooch out of here. Maybe even some of that. Come back over here. Ah, man. I'm gonna do like that. And we're gonna come in here like this. I feel like I need to preface this with, I am not a master woodworker, finisher, guy, person. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. It turns out pretty nice for a relatively Hobo Joe feeling method of application. It honestly feels pretty nice, to be honest. Kind of wish that was a little thicker. Might try, not that I really need more on here, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to get this side of the finish just a bit denser right down here. Now this is unique because it appears me doing that little bit is not disrupting the other bits. Wow, that looks actually quite good. Just scoop out these bits before they F it all up. Don't want it to be all effed up. Ah, it's a little bit effed up. Let me try this. I'm moving back and forth in the light because that's helping me see where the imperfections are that you won't see until you're in that light. I'm just scooping out little pools of this. It almost looks like it's worse than it was before there. I guess those grains are just sticking up real heavy right there or something. I don't know what the deal is there, but see if I can get rid of that. Can get a piece of hair in it is what I can do. Bad time for a call. I think I'm done. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it. And by that I mean take these off. And then call it. Okay. Let's see, is anything doing anything that it shouldn't be doing? This is probably going to be a crazy nightmare to attempt to edit any of this. Okay. That seems to have worked. That appears to have worked. So guys, like, do this hand rubbed rag finish on your own accord here. It is up to you. It is your danger to do this, but gotta say it works pretty good for me. Guess I'll cut this and cut it back on whenever. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Get this sucker on before I start talking too much. It is the next day after having done 3 coats of lacquer on this guy. I almost went with 2, but I realized that this lacquer requires, if it's been 6 hours or more in between coats, you have to sand it, and I didn't want to do that, so I went ahead and threw 1 more coat on, kind of last minute, and that's probably why it has a couple little, looks like brush strokes essentially, but they're pretty fine, difficult to see, and I don't think it'll bother me too much. But I will say, on the second coat, whenever I had done it like right at the 2-hour mark every time, I don't remember seeing a brush stroke 1 with this method, so that's pretty great. I think the reason that there's some few little spots with a little bit of a brush stroke is because I waited until like the 5.5 hour mark and did it pretty last minute, but it is what it is. It still looks quite good. I'm gonna grab my drill here and unscrew this and start taking a look at it. Nice and shiny. So I do wish that I had done the third coat sooner, because it is a little bit heavier in some spots. But I don't think, I'm not sure how much the perfectionist in me is going to come out, but I don't think I'm going to redo this, or even like do a light sanding really or anything. I think I'm just going to keep it. So let's put this thing together. That's the next step here. I suppose while I do that, I'll go ahead and mention, I was thinking about something. This is the next day after I've been working in these other videos. That's just the next day, and I was thinking last night how it's a bit ironic and stupid that I went over how I wanted to use, you know, for the, as opposed to just standard bluing compound, I wanted to do a vinegar based finish and do something more natural. And then I waltz right over to the can of lacquer and start throwing that all over the wood. It's a little bit ironic and stupid. But I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking, well, what is my motive really? I think my motive is partially enjoying the historical aspect of doing a patina based finish on the steel, because of the historical based aspect, and honestly also because it's readily available, readily accessible. It's very easy to attain for anybody. It's not a specialty chemical or piece of equipment, and it's pretty cool that, you know, you can essentially use it for cleaning your house, for eating, pickling things. You know, it has a lot of uses to it, and I just appreciate the versatility of that as a, you know, not so dangerous compound. It's pretty cool. But then on the flip side of that, where's my, I'll throw a little oil in this. On the flip side of that, this lacquer, while it's not very safe or any of those types of things, it is what I have. You know, and in the interest of the bushcrafty survival homestead world of doing with what you have, or getting by, making do with what you have, is a really huge part of that. I had some lacquer. I don't think I even bought that lacquer. I have no idea really where it came from. If anything, that's smoother than it was before I did this. That's pretty cool. So if anything, it feels smoother to me right now. Here's the magazine. Did I put it in backwards? I think I did. There we go. Look at that freaking thing. That is cool. That is very cool. Did I finish what my point was though? Just doing what you can with what you have. I have vinegar, I happen to have lacquer, and I do enjoy the shine that lacquer puts on stuff. Oil is by all means more readily available. Doing an oil-based finish, more readily available and probably way easier. The problem with the oil-based finish is that it, in my opinion, it doesn't quite look as quote-unquote good, and that's of course dependent upon the eyes of the beholder. But for me, I enjoy a little bit of shine on some guns, and you know, I've done oil finishes in the past on guns, and I liked them well, and I liked that they were more durable, and I didn't have to worry about the plasticky surface chipping off of it. But you know, like I say, I am enjoying doing what I can with what I have here. So hopefully that helps it make a little bit more sense. But I definitely recognize that there's a bit of hypocrisy in me being like, oh, I want a natural finish with the vinegar, and then going straight to lacquer finish for everything else. This is going to be so unique. I love this. Well, everybody, appreciate you watching this video and joining me for refinishing this fantastic gun. And if you enjoyed what you saw, and if you made it this far, please like and subscribe. And yeah, I post videos kind of somewhat in the ballpark of this, outdoorsy type videos and Christian videos too. And yeah, check out the channel. Appreciate you watching. Bye.